Namaskar and Jai Hind. My name is Kedar Gadgil, and I have been an entrepreneur for the last 34 years. I have dabbled in everything from textiles to infotech, both hardware and software, banking, business process outsourcing, life sciences, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, aerospace, trading, media, you name it, over the last 34 years through different companies that I either started myself or helped others start. Recently, I spend a lot of time with startup entrepreneurs, people who are young, people who don't have a business background, typically first generation entrepreneurs. And I speak to them about their problems, their aspirations, their dreams, the obstacles that they might face, and generally go into spaces with large gatherings of these aspirational or rather aspiring entrepreneurs and speak to them about what it is like to be an entrepreneur. I don't tell them, I don't give them data that they can look up on Chat GPT or Google or whatever that whether to form a proprietary or a partnership or a private limited, where to form your company, how to get a GST certificate, how to apply for Udyam Aadhaar, and so on and so forth. So I don't help them with that information. That is just data information, as I said. I offer them insights, wisdom uh, from my own experiences over the last 3 decades. And in the course of that, I always involve them in the thinking. And I also ask them several questions. Now, one of the questions that I ask these people is, do you have a plan C? Now, everybody has a plan A, which is your main plan. Then everybody has a plan B, which is what happens if plan A fails. But very few people have a plan C, which is what happens if you succeed beyond your wildest imaginations. Which means what I want to know is, have you really thought of how you will handle success? And the reason is a lot of people who do get successful in some way, not necessarily beyond their wildest imagination, but in some way fail to be able to handle it and then go rolling back down the hill. And like Sisyphus, spend the rest of their lives rolling that rock up and then again only to see it tumble down. Case in point, me. I have done that several times in my life. Uh, of course, the fact that I am myself a smoker does not disqualify me from telling you the objective truth that smoking is harmful to your health. In fact, if anything, it actually gives my recommendation or suggestion or advice more weight because I am suffering from the first hand effects of my own mistakes. So, no, I'm not a smoker, not for the past 7 years at the very least. But what I mean is, as an entrepreneur who's succeeded, who's failed, who's succeeded, who's failed, and who's been through that cycle, and most of the time uh, taking lessons and making new mistakes, the only old mistake that I keep repeating is not being able to plan for success. So that's the one thing that I keep talking about to my mentees, to my audience, listeners, whatever you want to call them. Uh, Now, this extends sometimes to taking an extreme kind of uh, scenario and hypothesizing our behavior. So, I typically ask them, what happens if you were to become one of the top 10 richest people on earth? What would you use this fame and this wealth for? And the answers that I want to see are where the imagination of today's youth is. And what I have noticed is, while in poorer, lesser privileged backgrounds, in smaller colleges, in Sec B, Sec C towns, or even within Sec A towns, but in places with minority populations, in places with Dalit populations, in places with poorer populations, the answers are what one would expect the ideal youth to have, which is, I'll eradicate poverty, I'll fight crime, I will stop wars, I will invest in finding cures for diseases, I will, things like that. In slightly more affluent, if there's a slight undercurrent of affluence within the college, somebody might say, I will populate Mars, or some one of these whole Muskian fantasies. But in more privileged colleges, in richer kids, the one tendency that I have found is they don't think of all of this. What they will say if they had the money is, I will give some to my parents, I will give some to my friends, I will distribute it amongst my family and people that I like, and then I will invest the rest in startups, or I will travel, or I will spend it in some such way. When I explained to them that even if you were to spend $1 million a day, and the richest man on earth very soon is going to be worth $1 trillion, even if you were to spend $1 million a day, which is $365 million a year, which is about $1 billion in 3 years, slightly less than 3 years, you would require 3,000 years to spend $1 trillion at that rate. So you really can't tell me that you're going to give some money away and use the rest of it just to travel, because you're not going to be able to utilize utilize the sheer scale of the wealth that we're talking about. So do you have any other ideas? And they don't actually. So I even joked with them. One of them said that I would use that money to invest in startups. What kind of startups? I don't know. The ones that grow fast, the ones that have a great potential, great team, and so on and so forth. Which means that I asked that person, so you're going to use uh, all your wealth, which is almost all the wealth in the world, to try and make more money. Is Do you not see the dichotomy in that? And yes, there was laughter and everything, but that was a question. That is a question that I ask, and those are the answers that I get. Now, having set this preamble, I want to talk about what happened when I spoke about this to several of my more intelligent, wise, well traveled, well read, well experienced friends of around my age group, between 45 and 60, 65. So people who have been around. Interestingly, I received several explanations. The quick go to explanation was that privilege. Rich kids have privilege. They can't see the society, the part of the society that actually makes the society tick. They don't see people who work for them. They don't see people who work for the city, for the country. They don't see the workers. They are invisible. All of these people are invisible to these kids. And so they are like little Siddharthas who are growing in this little bubble of prosperity and ableness and perfect, I don't know, perfection. Yes, some sort of perfection in which there is no lack of food, there is no hunger, there is no poverty, there is no crime, there is no violence, uh, uh, and everything is just perfect. And that's the people who come from the just world hypothesis, where they say that all that I have to do is work hard, and if I have all this, then obviously either me or my ancestors must have worked hard to get this, so they deserve all of this. And those are the people who will gravitate towards the kind of answers that I have got. While the poorer folks are the ones who will look around them and see poverty and crime and violence and war and disease, and they will be the ones who will think that those are the priorities that they need to solve. So that's the go to answer that most people have got. And even I thought that was the answer until I heard another answer. And the other answer is the scarcity mentality uh, of the subcontinental population in general for over the last 250, 300 years that we have had, which has seeped into our bloodstream now. It's probably part of our genetic structure, that we cannot imagine a world where there is abundance, where there is enough. What you had today, you will have tomorrow. Another friend of mine said that in a particular school, they had this basket of apples that kids could take. I remember this similar basket of fruit that was kept outside a, Swiss house that we used to pass while going sightseeing long ago when I was a kid. Uh, uh, so we had to pass that. We stayed in this place for a few days, and we saw people go and take one fruit. People would take one fruit, eat it, and carry on. In India, I suspect that if we had this basket kept outside in the public for anybody take anything they want, that basket would disappear rather quickly. And not just because of poverty, but because one tends to hoard, one tends not to be sure what one's going to face with tomorrow. So if there's a basket of apples, a basket of fruit, one can pick it up. Even if some of it goes waste and rots eventually, it's better to have something extra rather than to hope that it's going to be there tomorrow. While in Sweden or Finland or Switzerland, one of these countries where there is abundance, one would expect the citizens to consider that if there is a basket of apple here today, it will be there tomorrow and the day after, and so on and so forth. And all I have to do is just take one apple because that's all I need. So the mentality of abundance versus scarcity is something that was brought up by another friend of mine, and that also explains it. And I'll tell you how that explains it. How does that explain the poorer students talk about poverty and crime? I believe that the richer students, the more privileged students, are the ones who think of well, this is my problem that I want to solve. That I don't have time to travel. My parents I don't have enough money, with the definition of enough being just more than what we have. It doesn't matter how rich you are. So I will give them some. I will, of course, help my friends. I'll help my relatives. I will give all this money. And then I will do things that I would have done if I didn't have to do whatever it is that I'm doing right now. So it's a very selfish perspective in terms of approaching this. And we do teach our kids to be selfish to a large extent because we come from a scarcity mentality and we tell them, पहले अपना ऑक्सीजन मास्क पहन लो भाई, फिर दूसरों को मदद करना, because you need oxygen first. So I agree. I'm not calling it out. I'm not judging it for good or bad. I'm simply saying this is what we do to our children. So how does that explain the poorer children talking about poverty? That is because it's their problems. They're saying, I will solve this problem for myself and for my parents and for my friends and my neighborhood and so on and so forth. So they are indeed being as selfish about it as the more privileged children. So that was another explanation that I was given, and it was quite interesting and convincing to a degree that yes, that could be true. We teach our children to be selfish. Children probably need to be selfish at that age. They don't need to think about the world. I disagree, because these are not really children. These were undergraduates and postgraduate students and so on and so forth. So I would have thought they would be a little more idealistic, but they were not, and they are not. So I think that's the second explanation that I got in terms of children being a little selfish, and even the poorer ones approaching this problem from a selfish angle. Okay, as I said, I'm not judging them. I'm just saying that's how it is, as seen by some of my wiser friends. And then there is this third explanation, which was to me the most convincing. It was, in fact, it was like an epiphany, because it explained not just the children's behavior, but it explained all our behavior, explained much more. In India, in the US, where now elections are going to take place, and in most of the world, okay, short of the most underdeveloped regions. So it's like this, that privileged children at the stage that they are, at privileged people. So now let's not talk of children. Let's just extend this to all of us, you, me, everyone who doesn't have to really worry about their next meal, doesn't have to worry about the next day, the rent, or the books one has to read, or clothes one can wear, or money to travel or transport oneself from one to one's work, and so on and so forth. People within the top 10% of the world. These are the people, and this, as I said, this is an epiphany. I can't wait to tell you. Of course, I've taken all this time, so I'm probably not that impatient, but I am, because this really blew my mind. Is we all treat politics and political parties, this society and the leaders of this society and the people who actually run this society. We are talking about the bureaucracy, we are talking of the politicians, we are talking of our leadership, general social communal leadership, and so on and so forth. We treat this whole life as a game show, and all of these as contestants. So let me actually take this analogy a little further. They are like our favorite EPL or IPL team. They are like, so for example, Congress for me is like, I don't know, Chennai Super Kings. For somebody, BJP is like the Mumbai Indians or the Kolkata Knight Riders. And we all cheer for our teams. We all wear their jerseys. We all genuinely feel happy or sad at their wins or losses. We all have a stake in our heads in their happiness, how much they are practicing, where they are seen. We would all dress up and go, and as an analogy to voting, we would go and watch them, or we would switch on the TV, take a day off, and actually see them play. We would follow the players and their personal lives. We would get involved, and when one player is sold or traded for another player, and the player moves this particular team to another team, we would then start telling ourselves how that's actually a good thing and that player wasn't really contributing. And hell, man, I'm happy to get rid of that player. Okay. And you could also have a little bit of nostalgia. You have souvenirs. You have everything that you have with an IPL team you have with your political party. So your relationship, the relationship of the top 10% of the entire world with their political parties is that of us and our favorite Premier League team. Okay. We think that by talking about it on social media, talking about social issues on social media, raising awareness, bringing people together, going out and voting, supporting the party, going and working for the party, writing about it, discussing it within friends, and being this self righteous, virtuous signaling human being, we think that we are somehow contributing. And we do feel rightly, it releases the right endorphins in our head and it makes us feel great. And we look around when we think we are changing the world. But here's the truth, it doesn't matter whether we are changing the world or not. Our lives are directly, very, very rarely impacted by who gets elected and for how long and where. A Kamala Harris or a Donald Trump could, I don't know, would they really impact whether you or your children would get a visa to go to the US? Other than that, I don't know what they'll impact. Would they impact the dollar's value? Would they impact the price of petrol in your town? And even if they do, does it really affect you? I was thinking the other day, I shifted to Shell petrol, which is like 35 rupees more expensive per liter than regular petrol. So regular petrol, say 101 rupees, and this is like 136 or 137 rupees or something. And I was thinking, I buy probably 100 liters of petrol a month. At 35 rupees a liter excess, I'm probably paying less than what I would pay for a dinner. So it really didn't affect me. Even if petrol were to, proverbially, as they say, 200 रुपए भी बन जाए पेट्रोल तो भी हम मोदी को लाएंगे. They are actually right. क्योंकि 200 रुपए भी पेट्रोल हो जाए तो it doesn't affect people like you. It actually doesn't affect the top 10%. The price of dal, the price of tomatoes, the price of airfare. We can bitch all about how expensive it is to fly to Delhi and back, or Hyderabad or Ahmedabad or wherever hell we are going. But it really doesn't affect our lives. It doesn't affect our children's life. They go to the fanciest schools and colleges. We pay their fees, we buy their uniforms, we do all of that. It only really affects the bottom 10% or bottom 20% of people's lives. And it doesn't affect almost 80% of them, most certainly not 10%, the top 10% to which we belong. And that is something that was the epiphanous moment, so to say, that yes, it's like a game show. I can write about it, I can be involved, I can even be part of a political movement, a party, but it doesn't really matter, does it, to my own life? I keep talking about my children. I'm worried about my children. Of course I'm worried about my children and the society that they will grow up in. But uh, will it really affect my children, uh, other than some minor delta of inconvenience, the change that they will have compared to my own life? But then the change from my life to their life is already so vast that this is just another change they will take in their stride. So it's not really a question. That's the statement I want to leave you with, that while it's perfectly all right, and none of this is wrong, please don't please don't think that I'm judging anybody. I'm simply stating a epiphany that came to me through another friend who has been in the political system for the longest time. And he said that, Kedar, encouraging people to vote, or getting them to write on social media or follow you or retweet, or engaging them in argument or discussion or whatever, really doesn't matter to you. I mean, it matters to a Pelu Khan, but it doesn't matter to you. What difference has it made you? Yes, perhaps your opportunities have reduced over the last 10 years. Perhaps you have felt a little embarrassed by the way our foreign service is making stupid mistakes abroad. Perhaps you are worried that our army is getting polarized. All of that, I agree we are not going down the right path. But does it really affect you? You are going to probably live till 72, which is another 20 years. And do you really think that in 20 years you are going to see something drastic that is going to affect your lives? Okay, so yes, I agree that if we go down that path, if we had gone down that path way back in the days when it was possible to go down that path and become a Nazi Germany, and then generations upon generations were killed and destroyed, and the histories and futures were rewritten and so on and so forth. It is unlikely in 2024. It is unlikely in 2034. It's unlikely in 2044. Of course, as I said, an old man talking about or predicting the future is most probably wrong. But I believe that our lives over the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years are unlikely to be changing much unless we are literally in the eye of the storm. Are you a Harsh Mandar? Are you an Arvind Kejriwal? Are you a Rahul Gandhi? Are you a Nitin Gadkari? Are you one of those people whose lives are actually going to be affected? If not, then I think we all need a sense of proportion to understand where we stand and where all our writing and all our thought and all our anger stands at the end of the day. So take what you will from this talk. I have no clue if this is a problem at all to search for a solution, or if there is a solution to this, if this is a problem. But the truth is, this is what we are. And unfortunately, there is really no other explanation that comes to my mind that is better than this. So once again, thank you so much for listening. It's been a long, long monologue, but I hope you get to take away something from it. Bye bye.